My name is Aurelie Cormier, and welcome to the Intentional Wellness Parenting Show, where we set an intention to create healing and wellness every living day. Let me ask you, have you felt sometimes that life is just hard? Wonder if I told you that our life is actually meant for joy, fun, and good health. Of course, it doesn't just happen, but the first step to getting there is to believe that good health is possible and to envision what you would love. From there, we can choose the simple health habits that give our minds, bodies, and spirits the nourishment it needs to work well. Over 2 million people in the U.S. will be diagnosed with cancer this year. Between 600,000 and 1 million are preventable. Our genes are not our destiny, yet our epigenetics can be affected by environmental factors. Therefore, the best time to make a difference is now. So let's dive right in.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to do this incredible show with Aurelie. And what I want to say, this topic today, I'm going to tell you exactly what the topic is. So I want you all to really make a note of this. What can young women in Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z generations do to protect themselves from the global rise in breast cancer? Today, you're going to hear exactly what that is. You're going to follow along with Aurelie as she takes you through some of the most gut-wrenching stories, but for a purpose. These are people that want us to share these stories, to become more aware of the action you can take now. Aurelie, thank you for today. And I want to just start off because I work with younger people. Some things I can get their attentions on, like today the topic is, why did the Mariners lose? But when it comes to health items, it's a little bit more of a challenge. And this question is, why do women of childbearing age, why do they need to think about this? Because once upon a time, they didn't, right?
Right, exactly. And it almost seems counterintuitive because most of the cancers we've seen have been in people in retirement age. But now we're seeing that there are about 10 cancers that are being diagnosed in people from 15 to 50 that we rarely saw before. Not that they didn't happen, but they didn't happen very often. And it turns out this is not just happening in the United States, it's happening around the world. And women have an 83% higher rate than men in the diagnosis of some of these cancers. So I really want to be, especially because this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I really felt that it was important to talk about this so that we can help with women in this Gen X, Y, and Z generation to have a reduced risk of these cancers that are happening. So as women, I think we know our bodies better than anyone. We know our kids' bodies better than anyone. And we're often the ones that are scheduling the healthcare appointments, not only for ourselves, but our partners, our children. And so, yes, it's helpful for women of childbearing age to be aware that there is an increase, especially if you have a personal or a family history of cancer. And I'd love to share a story that highlights this. There's a woman named Karen. It's not her real name, but she allowed me to share her story. And she had a very stressful job, and I'm sure that was impacting on her ability to get pregnant because she and her husband had a wonderful life. They were very comfortable, but the one thing missing in their life was a baby. And so they decided they wanted to, because they were having trouble and it just didn't seem to be happening, they wanted to adopt a baby. And so Karen had gone for a mammogram and it showed that there was a lump and she had it biopsied. And while they were waiting for the results, she and her husband talked about this and they said, you know what, if she had breast cancer, they were going to let go of their dream of adopting a little baby. Well, the results came back and they were negative. And the doctor told them, you know what, you're negative. You don't have breast cancer. We'll continue to, keep our eye on this. But, she and her husband decided they were going to go ahead with their dream. So They went to China to adopt this baby. Well, then they had another hurdle to go go through, jump through, and it was around the time of the SARS virus. So they, were very careful. They were able to bring their little baby home, and she got back to work, and he got back to work, and a year after they adopted her, that she went for another mammogram, and it was found to be positive this time
Mm.
for a stage 3 breast cancer, a HER2 positive breast cancer with 4 positive lymph nodes. And if any of you know, have yourselves have had breast cancer, friends who have had breast cancer, having 4 positive lymph nodes is significant, and having a HER2 positive is significant. So she went to several experts to try to figure out what kind of treatment she should get. And when she, collected all the information, she had to go through chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. And serendipitously, when she finished that, then she found out that there was a new drug that had been approved for her type of breast cancer that was for women with a HER2 positive and positive lymph nodes. And so she talked to the doctor. She went ahead with the treatment. It was a drug called Herceptin, which is a monoclonal antibody which inhibits a protein that stimulates the growth of cancer cells. And this was really a blessing for her because it was found to be a very beneficial drug against breast cancer. And then once she finished that, she had 6 to 12 months more of treatment with chemotherapy. And as you can imagine, all while she's caring for this little baby and going to work, and it was very challenging. So interestingly, when the little girl was 3 years old and Karen's getting ready for work one day, the little girl says to us, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And she said, "What, sweetie?" And the little girl said, "You used to be very sick." And Karen said, she went over, she sat down beside her, and she said, "Am I still sick, sweetie?" And her daughter said, "No." So Karen asked her daughter how she knew, to which her 3-year-old became super serious and replied, "That's why I came to you, so you wouldn't be sick anymore."
Mm.
And I just thought, oh my God, this is the most inspiring story I think I've ever heard, and how insightful of this 3-year-old. And so that I wanted to share that with you because you know what? Sometimes things come to us that are so serendipitous. And I thought it was a very powerful story. Now, what this little girl said was true because that was 22 years ago. Karen has survived her breast cancer. Her daughter is now grown and on her own. And Karen and her husband have now retired, and they're living a very happy, joyful, and fun life together. And so I think that, there's so many lessons that we
Yeah.
can learn from this. But I think, in looking at the situation, as I said, this is, these cancers being diagnosed in men and women, but what we're talking about today is breast cancer,
Mhm.
is happening on a global scale. And researchers are looking into this and why this is happening. And so at this point, they're positing there could be 2 factors going on here: one, the environment, and the other, the gut microbiome. So if we look at the environment first, we live in a country with many people who are very creative. They're inventors. They try to think of things that are going to make life easier for people. It's with positive intent. But over time, we find out some of these things can be harmful to our health. And this is the situation with some of the chemicals we have in our environment. There are actually 86,000 chemicals that are used in the United States today. And it's not like they say, "Oh, I'm bleach. Oh, I'm lead. I'm mercury." They are just, surrounding us in our homes, on our yards, at work. in our playtime. And so we need to have more awareness about this, because living on Earth that spins around, where there's air currents, there's water currents, even if these chemicals are in the United States, people on the other side of the globe are going to be exposed to them. Chemicals that are on the other side of the globe, we're going to be exposed to. So protect yourself. Okay. Even if you can't see these things, just be aware some of these things are around. And the other thing that we're seeing today is a lot of microplastics, and they're finding that these microplastics are in our bodies, they're in our brains, our heart, our lung, they're being found in the placenta. So the baby is now growing in the womb, being bathed in these microplastics.
So
And
let's just pause for a minute on that.
sure,
Because right now, what we're starting to see, to your point, and thank you for this beautiful background, because I want to just touch upon one thing. When we're talking about
yep,
gut health, we're also
yep,
talking about what the heck we're putting in there. And the gut is such a great
exactly,
machine, right?
exactly,
It's a great
yep,
machine. The other thing you mentioned, and I know you're going to continue to talk about this, we're starting to get more and more reports. And so it comes out like this, Orally. You get a
mm,
report, like I got a report on my protein drink, which I'm no longer drinking. So I
yep,
got the report, but it was just one item that had this carcinogen in it.
right,
Then I looked, and do you know, I'm in the store and I tell this woman who's buying 2 cases of this for her son. And
yep,
I said, look at this label. That is a carcinogen. And she says, but my son likes to drink, and proceeds to take both of those containers. So this is a much bigger educational topic. That's why I can't
right.
wait for a health channel. But can you walk people through this? That this is part of why we're seeing it younger, because generations ago, we weren't putting this in our bodies. And tell people one last thing, the plastic story, because a lot of people just heard us say that, but I don't think anybody's got a clue.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that we're learning every day. I was not aware how much microplastics were in our body, or that they were in the placenta. As I was, researching this, I was like, oh my God, microplastics in the placenta. And it turns out there's about 900 different chemicals that actually contribute to the development of breast cancer. So it's constantly, educating ourselves, and as I said, being aware of our environment, being aware of our foods, because it wasn't until recently that I heard that protein for protein drinks was, not good for our health either. Now, I'm guessing that there's some that are beneficial and still are just like regular proteins, but there's ones that we need to be aware of that can be not that can be harmful to our health. So it's just constantly staying up with what the science is saying,
Yeah.
which can get confusing these days. But
Yeah, but you're right. What happens is we come out with general statements, and you're right about this. But can we make a plea? Can we beg people, please just start reading the labels a little bit?
yeah,
Please read them. And if you see like a term that starts with a C and has got a bunch of R's in it, and you think, well, I don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you what it is. It's a food thickener. It's in everything. But you see, if we're not going to read these things, one protein drink may be okay, but a lifetime, and then add
mhm,
upon that. Isn't that what you're talking about? Is the accumulation even at these young
right.
ages?
Yeah. And when, it's in the placenta, then we're talking about exposure right from the very first dividing cell. And we want to try to protect those epigenetics as much as possible. Because it sometimes it shows up as cancer, sometimes it's heart disease, sometimes it's mental illness. I mean, there's many different ways that it can manifest. And just as you were saying, I mean, we have a variety of foods. I mean, our grandparents, great grandparents, they ate whole foods, real food. What we have been slowly introducing into our culture is minimally processed foods, which started back in the 1920s. Then we went to processed foods, after World War II, so that we could preserve the shelf life of the food longer. And then we went to ultra processed foods in the 1980s, where we have things like emulsifiers, colorings, flavor enhancers, bulking agents, gels. None of these are real foods, but they are impacting on our health because they're full of saturated fat, salt, and sugar, which promote chronic disease. So just being, it is important to read the label that, and you know what, what I've found is people have to decide what is important to them. What is their family history? Because some people, they don't want to, they don't have the time, or they're just trying to survive every day. They don't, they're not thinking about preventing disease. So everyone needs to do what's important to them. But if you could think about it and just try like once a week to incorporate in reading a label, so that you're starting to get familiar with some of these things that aren't real foods. The second root cause of some of these early developments of cancer are actually the gut microbiome. We have 39 trillion bacteria in our gut. And in the mid 1940s, penicillin was developed, the first antibiotic, and it was a game changer. It saved the lives of so many people and prevented disabilities for, maybe children that developed meningitis, or for soldiers that were wounded on the battlefield during World War II. But then we got to the point where we were using them all the time. Some were becoming resistant, so then they became stronger, more potent. Or if maybe someone had a cough, well, maybe we should give an antibiotic just to prevent them from developing pneumonia. And what we've learned over time is that the gut is our second brain, and we need to protect it. And if we are taking an antibiotic, not only is it killing the infection that we have, it's also killing some of the good bacteria in your gut, which then allows the bad bacteria to grow. And that's having an impact on the rest of our body and our health. So just being aware that that gut microbiome is a very important part of our health. And if we upset it and we are increasing the bad bacteria as we take too many antibiotics, scientists are thinking we may be contributing to some of these cancers that we are seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
for people that are listening, there is a process here. And like you said, antibiotics have saved a lot of lives. But the process is to understand what antibiotics do. And if you understand what they do, then you'll understand how to replenish and help your gut brain out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And just to help women who may be at risk of breast cancer because of personal or family history, or are part of the Gen X, Y, and Z generation where we're seeing more of these cancers. What can you do to reduce your risk?
Yeah.
Well, food is an important one. And so what we found is eating a wholesome plant-based diet actually reduces your risk, because you're eating real foods that have phytonutrients in them, that have a variety of colorful vegetables and fruits that have things like lycopene, lignans, isoflavones that reduce your risk of getting breast cancer or cancer in general. And as an example, tomatoes actually they have a phytonutrient in them, lycopene, which actually helps cancer cells to die. And so that's a good thing. Yellow and orange vegetables like sweet potatoes or carrots, they have carotenoids that decrease oxidative DNA damage. And what that means is a reduction in the cellular damage that can cause mutations. So that's a helpful thing to eat orange vegetables. And that can also help reduce your risk of breast cancer. Soy products. We used to think soy it could actually make your breast cancer worse. Well, it turns out soy is actually beneficial because it has they has isoflavones in it, which help reduce your risk of any cancers, but breast cancer in particular. So if you're, in a younger person, I would, maximize your soy products. The thing to be aware of is some of the soy products are sprayed with pesticides.
Yeah.
So if you can get organic, that's better.
Yeah. I want to make a plug for that. That's not even a question mark. Um, Soy is in the category of cotton, one of the most sprayed things we have on the planet.
Mhm.
And why do you think countries like Thailand have a complete agricultural organic prime minister of whatever they're growing? Because they take in so much soy. So when we move through this, what I hear you saying, and let's keep going, we
Yeah.
have to make informed decisions. So we're telling people, you're hearing a lot here, please do your own research, right?
Right. Yeah. And the other things that I can help with are regular exercise, 20 to 30 minutes a day, at least 4 to 7 days a week. Find something that you're passionate about if you don't have something you do on a regular basis already, because not only does it boost up your energy, it also boosts up your immune system, reduces your risk of cancers, helps strengthen your heart. So there's a lot of benefits to getting aerobic exercise that pumps up your heart rate, whether that's, and just a good brisk walk is one of the best things you can do. Keeping your weight at an appropriate level. We know that women who are overweight are at an increased risk of breast cancer. So keeping your weight normal, limiting your alcohol intake to 3 or 4 drinks per week. And what is a drink? 12 ounces of beer, 4 ounces of wine, 1 ounce of hard liquor. And then being in a positive, supportive community, because we found that the number one factor for a longer, healthier life is actually being in a positive, supportive community more than any of the other factors. And if we get back to Karen's story in terms of some of the takeaways from her story and what helped her to survive, what I would recommend is if any of you are diagnosed with breast cancer, write down all the questions you have for your doctor. Talk to other people. Find who are the good surgeons, who are the good medical oncologists, who are the good radiation oncologists that they would recommend. And then when you go to these doctor's appointments, bring your most trusted person with you, whether that's your partner, your best friend, your mother, a healthcare professional that will go with you. You ask the questions, they're the ones that write down the answers. So when you get home, you know what all the thought process is,
Yeah.
because you can have 4 different people give you 4 different answers, and they're all good answers, because there's 200 different types of cancers and it's a complicated disease. And so there can be, different treatments available, several different treatments that are all reasonable for the particular cancer that you have. The other thing is, know that once you make your decision, trust your gut and just keep moving forward. Visualize a positive outcome. Feel that every day. Know that you have more control over your health than you realize. And then build that supportive community around you. Maybe you join a breast cancer support group, because they can be enormously helpful. People who understand what you're going through may have ideas that have been helpful that you hadn't thought of. So, and one of the things I would say, that Karen had relayed to me is that even though it was incredibly stressful for her to go through this breast cancer, one of the things she does believe helped with her survival is having this sweet child to love and to care for, and, the support of her husband along the way. And she said, we're in the midst of this life challenge, even though there was a lot of work to take care of this little baby, it was actually a blessing, because it gave her that extra will to live and to
Yeah.
do whatever she could to survive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I thought that was a really powerful lesson because we're all going to have challenges in our life.
So powerful.
And each of those challenges can be an opportunity to grow. And many people tell me that, in the beginning, you're in a state of shock, but know that maybe 1 to 3 years down the road, you're going to see the positive message in that. And many patients told me that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to them. And I used to question, why would you say that? And they said, because they let go of anything that no
Yeah.
longer served them. And they realized there were only three important things in life: their health, their family, their friends. And beyond that, not much else mattered.
On
So,
that note, I want to thank you for everything here today.
yeah.
And this is a show we could have done in at least an hour or more. Thank you so much for everything. More to come. We're going to
Yeah.
continue this conversation and
Well, and
perhaps go
can I
ahead.
just say one thing? I am having a workshop starting on Thursday. If you go to my website, aureliecormier.com, it's called Legacy Reset: 5 Weeks to Rewrite Your Family's Health Story. It's for couples that are thinking of having a baby within the next year. I would love to have you join me. And it is a little over $200, but it's per couple. So it's not per person,
Yeah.
it's per couple. And if we can keep those babies healthy, that
Yeah.
would make me really happy. And I think it'll make you happy too.
Totally will. Thank you all. A lot here to unpack, but please go back and listen. Let's take a short break. We got more coming up on the Transformation Network.
You've been listening to the Winning Every Living Day with me, Aurelie Cormier, with Dr. Pat. I'm so glad you joined us on this journey of believing in yourself and taking the steps toward a life you truly love. Be sure to tune in every first Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Talk Radio for more inspiration, tools, and strategies to support your health, your relationships, and your dreams. And if you're ready for deeper transformation, sign up for my master classes and workshops by visiting my website, aureliecormier.com. These powerful programs provide the extra support and guidance that can make an enormous impact in helping you achieve the life you've been dreaming of. Until next time, remember, you have what it takes to start winning every living day.